Let's go, everybody. It is time to talk about the monetization of Diablo 4 because they just did a big, chunky old reveal of it. This is something that obviously in the light of Immortal has got us all pretty damn curious, let's just say. So for the vital context you need for this, Blizzard's content teams are chunky. Really, really chunky. World of Warcraft went up to like 700 plus people. Apparently that team is experiencing attrition due to some policies coming in from the top down that are going against what the game directors of Blizzard's projects are sort of saying to their leaders, which is rather unfortunate. But what we've seen is more monetization, but significantly more content. A very fine sort of balancing act, right? As an example, World of Warcraft had almost what you may call a microtransaction for $8, but against the backdrop of a absolute shit ton of content. You then look at Overwatch 2. While not all has been perfect there, you cannot deny that those seasons somehow have managed to come out, which, I mean, given that we didn't really expect things to go particularly well, given how aggressive their plans seem to be, is kind of surprising. And now when we look at Diablo 4, I think we see a game that is trying to have almost that more MMO-like cadence. Okay, less World of Warcraft, probably a little bit more Destiny 2. Now, Blizzard always said that this would involve some post-launch monetization. Now we're going to find out what that is. But I can tell you, it's probably not today's sponsor. You cannot know what you've not been shown. It is such a big problem in today's algo world. So that's why today's sponsor, ground.news/Bellular, is here to save us. I got them on board because their culture aligns with ours, with this channel, you know, cutting through the bullshit, the spin, the bias. Founded by a NASA engineer, they aggregate news from over 50,000 worldwide sources with full bias breakdowns for all of the different outlets, and as well as like what types of outlets even cover stories. So it actually, whenever you read, it'll know what you read, and then it will show you stories that are tailored to your blind spots. I mean, hell, seeing their front page, right, with all the news and how it's being covered is just cool. It feels like you're able to just get the combined knowledge, the balance of everything. As an example, the war in Ukraine is something that, you know, I want to know what's going on there, right? So having tools like this is just fantastic. And recently, they've been dead handy with work when I've been researching big topics like, a while ago, the FTX collapse, and of course, much more recently, the ongoing mess that has been Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. So, in a world where we often find out things because of retweeted headlines or biased, dubious sources, Ground.news exists to help you find your footing in the truth and empowers you to be a well-informed individual. So, ground.news/Bellular. You can sign up for free there or subscribe for unlimited access. They've got a range of plans starting from under $1 a month. An awesome service. And you can check them out at that link. Well, there is a deluxe edition-sized elephant in this room. Diablo 4 is a premium launch with the base edition costing $70, right? Now, it does, of course, have your usual pre-order bonuses that are connected to other Blizzard games, a bunch of cosmetics, things like that. You can pay an extra $20, though, for the deluxe edition, and that will get you 4 days of early access. So June 2nd release date. It's one of those interesting things. Quite often you have some technical hiccups in that period, but this does solidify June 2nd as the real launch, and at least from my experience, and I think a lot of perceptions, this is a strategy that is extremely effective. I mean, what do you do? Okay, the numbers would have been easier. I could have just said, you increase your average price of a sale by like 25%. Not as high a percentage since we're $70 instead of $60, but you get my point, right? For almost everybody, and especially a game like this where it is a big, it's a big tide, right? A big tide of gameplay, where, people are benchmarking themselves to their friends, right? Like, yeah, that's going to go humongous, I think, for them. And also, since PvP is more of a thing in this game, it does give people a little bit of a head start there. But we can add to this the Collector's Edition at $100, which is also roughly industry standard that does not include the game. Now, that being said, when you actually look at the Collector's Edition, it looks pretty sick, and in fairness to them, the Blizzard Collector's Editions are usually quite good. You, of course, get your big, sexy box, pin, cloth map, art book, kind of the whole 9 yards. So that's the sort of thing. I won't really begrudge them too much. You'll soon see I have my own thoughts on having to do something similar to this, which maybe you'll find out about in like a month or two. Anyway, as we go on then, your $70 game, all your various different upsells, which I think will be highly, highly effective. Just look at the number of copies that D3 shipped on launch. Like, this franchise absolutely does the numbers. But then, of course, we've got whatever the hell's after that. So let's take a look at post-launch support. Okay, there are going to be quarterly releases. All right, so not as aggressive as Overwatch 2, but quarterly releases, and I actually think that is pretty damn fantastic. So, additional gameplay features, new quest lines, battle passes, legendary items, class balance changes, quality of life improvements, also bringing in fresh concepts and ideas to the game. So, seems pretty decent. Our first season starts mid to late July, over a month after the game comes out. Now, they've said that this is because these new seasons will all only be accessible post-campaign. Right? So seasonal content is after the campaign. That's why they're doing that sort of delay. But it's not going to be a direct continuation of the campaign. They're going to leave that to the expansions. And they also confirmed that the story can be skipped after the first time you've completed it, which of course just means you don't have to like redo the story on your seasonal characters. Overall then, this in itself is kind of interesting, right? You look at, say, a Destiny. One of the things people, I think, sometimes liked in Destiny was the progression of plot, or at least the progression of lore between those seasons. Maybe we will still see that, like, lore hints, things like that, that kind of, weird live service way of storytelling that doesn't involve a shitload of content. Which, yeah, I think this is basically them wanting to get all that engagement, but still wanting the idea of a new expansion, big new story, big new villain, all of that to be super exciting, and to, of course, drive humongous sales. Anyway, this also does follow something that Call of Duty's been doing. And I really have found this to be interesting because a lot of the modern Call of Duty games, whenever you boot them up and play them, you click in the store and you're like, what? There's a bundle that gives money to the Call of Duty endowment for veterans, and there's basically not much else in the way of monetization. This is loopy. And it's always then that, like, after a month or two, that's when the season starts, that's when the monetization comes in. So this kind of will happen, kind of gives the game then that new marketing beat as the season drops. It's time to re-engage, and that is where all of your sort of optional spend and all of that sort of comes in. And this also has the very handy thing of allowing them to dodge having to show off any particular pricing or anything like that that could be kind of controversial. As an example, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 looked like a pretty damn, good, fair experience when you actually look at that on launch. And then very recently with its DMZ mode, we have seen multiple, cosmetic bundles that do happen to have a gameplay benefit, which is a bit scummy. Now, to go and talk about the seasonal journey then, this will be familiar to people who have played games like this. It's designed to showcase all the seasonal content to players by giving you chapters made up of individual missions, and if you click on it here, you can see exactly what it looks like. You've got your different chapters of the seasonal journey, and essentially just what a lot of players want. They want to go into their game, they want to have a clear goal, and they want to have something that just says, hey there gamer, this is what you can go and do to move your way through this. And versus just grinding out a Paragon level by killing a bunch of mobs, or grinding XP by winning matches in Halo Infinite or something, something like this allows Blizzard to have it be a little bit more designed, a little bit more varied, with pretty damn clear rewards being displayed. So it's pretty obvious. Now, all of this stuff is free, right? So you complete these missions, you see some of the new content, you get rewards. This is free stuff. But if you also participate in the season, every challenge that you do awards you with favor. Completing quests gives you favor, joining events gives you favor, just generally doing stuff in the game gives you favor. Now, based on this screenshot, this is not necessarily something that's marked in super discrete numbers. You'll rather just see things that say, like, look at this, reward, larger favor drop. So we're earning favor. What does favor do? Well, of course, favor takes us through the Battle Pass. Yes. Oh, woohoo, we're back. Battle passes. It's one of those things for a long time that they have been seen to work. There have been good implementations of this. Not to be sitting here praising Halo Infinite, but the way that Halo Infinite guarantees that you do not, lose things that you've purchased with its sort of persistent model, that is really good. But obviously battle passes, we're now getting very fatigued by them as an industry, because basically every single game is saying, hey, we need X hours a week. That's just what we need from you, gamer. To the point, I think, where people are just beginning to be really tired of being asked for that. Okay, so there's a little bit of a look at the Battle Pass. We've got 27 free tiers and 63 premium tiers. This will last for 3 months, and it ain't a Halo Infinite, crew. It cannot be completed after that, and it can only be progressed on seasonal characters. Now, the free tiers will give you cosmetics, which are framed as being class agnostic. They give you smoldering ashes, which can be spent on blessings, right? So these are things like player-controlled boosts to XP, gold, and obol earnings during a season. Now, these are gameplay changing. And these are basically character level limited. So you actually cannot apply them unless your character reaches an appropriate level. And the reason why they've done this is that you can't just buy a whole bunch of tier skips, then get all of these boosts, and then hyper-optimize your way, like, right up to the top with those boosts. So that's something they're doing to just sort of control the flow of progress there, to maintain just to maintain balance between the people who are and are not paying, which, yeah, you know, that's good. I think in a game like this, XP boosts and stuff, they can actually be kind of fun. They can certainly be a very meaningful reward, given how this genre is very much codified along the lines of grind and time equals money. So, our premium tiers then, they are very explicitly framed in regards to what they are not, but we don't have a ton of detail on the actual content. So, the upgraded track has 0 in-game power, instead has cosmetics unique to that season, and the platinum currency. So, platinum is a premium currency that you cannot earn in-game. You can only buy it with real money, and you can, of course, spend that in the shop or for future battle passes. So, let's take a look at our pricing then. The battle pass is free. The basic one. You then have the premium battle pass, which is $9.99, giving you access to the 63 premium tiers of the pass, and then the accelerated battle pass. Are you old? Are you old and crusty? Like, you know, I'm 28. I'm ancient, but do you want to be a zoomer? Do you want to be a zoomer and zoom through your battle pass? Well, you can do that for $25, where you will get 20 tier skips and the Wings of the Creator. Woo! Emote. Now, Blizzard also confirmed to Kotaku that the tier skips are otherwise $2 each, and that the Accelerated Pass exclusive items will not be available separately. Aha, yes, so it's not just time equals money, it's also saying, hey, do you want to be that VIP? Well, you'll get a special little doodad. Alright, so the cosmetic shop then, let's talk about that. So, the very first thing the Blizzard said about this shop, and they wanted to be clear, because I think they know that if they cock this up, they'll be murdered. It is just that you do not need to engage with it. And, of course, this is a challenging thing for Blizzard, because they are going up against, an industry where people are very used to things in some free-to-play games, like, fairly obviously, Path of Exile. But a lot of it comes down to a concept called price anchoring, which, I'm sure you'll be aware of, right? It's like, you always, you process new information in regards, or, with a strong consideration of what you previously expected. So it's like, if I go to you and say, I'll do the thing, it'll cost $3,000, and you say, no, that's too much money, and I'll say, okay, I'll do it for $2.5. And then you'll be like, oh, wow, that's a $500 discount. Fantastic! Well, it only looks like a deal because I anchored it at $3,000. And it's like that with video game business models. Again, I bring up Halo Infinite as a good example there, because people were anchored into the idea of an old Halo progression system where you could just get all the armor stuff, yourself, and then the deal changed. So that's why Blizzard are going to be very, very careful with this. So they argue that there are, well, I don't know if they're arguing, they're claiming that there are hundreds of transmogs, weapons, pieces of armor, including dozens of armor sets, all available to players at launch. And that everything in the cosmetic shop is to give additional options. More importantly, and this is bolded in Blizzard's original text, so they want you to know this is important. None of the cosmetics sold in the shop provide you anything greater than aesthetic variety. And they also make a point of saying that the dark, gritty elements of Diablo will be reinforced via all cosmetics, and this additionally means some shop cosmetics will be class-specific, but this mostly seems to be suggesting that they won't be doing wacky skins, such as, remember Battlefield Santa? that Battlefield players got a little bit confused over. Now, as for how the shop is going to work, explicitly something that you may never engage with, other than using it for, like, the platinum that you'll get via the Battle Pass. That it's for self-expression, not power, that they will be rotating cosmetics on a consistent basis, but that the shop will be intelligent. Yes, a smart shop that will recommend to you cosmetics that fit the playstyle and aesthetic of your current character. And that's one of those funny things, right? It reminds me of, like, advertisement personalization. Because by default, whenever an app or a website says, would you like a personalized advertisement experience? What do you and me do? We think, hell no, get out of me. You hit the no button, and then all the adverts are random shite. Whereas, how many times do you have a situation where, obviously these sites, they all have telemetry on you, a brand that thinks that you are their customer, wants to reach out to you, they can do that via advertising, so they use a targeted ad in order to get in front of you, and that's how a lot of people maybe see some sort of brand on whatever algorithmically generated social media platform that they're using, and they think, oh, that advert actually looks interesting to me, I'll use that. So it's that interesting thing where even if you look at a Halo Infinite, and I like to bring Halo Infinite up a lot because it's a really good example of a failure that wasn't just like a failure of like turbo greed or anything. It was a failure of just being just a squib. It was just like, Halo Infinite, bleh, no one cares, right? Where one of the things people criticized it of was, your shop's boring. So it's interesting there. This is one of those things where you'll see this, you'll be like, this is blatant profiteering, using an algorithm to make me spend more money. Whereas it's also just ensuring there'll be things that you actually might be interested in. So I think that's an interesting little brain teaser. Now, class-specific items will be on the account level, not the character level. Diablo Immortal. And as a result, cross-purchases are available. So any platinum or cosmetics that are on PC will, of course, be available on console. For me, this is a fairly... the idea of cross-progression is a fairly major thing. I think that, I know this game runs and feels fantastic on console because that's actually how I played it originally. But I would like the option on PC, so that is good. Now, they also stress that there is a preview function that is a key element of the store, and the reason why they've done that is to let somebody fully inspect the cosmetic. It's a little bit like what they did in FF14, where I think basically your character goes to sleep in a bed in an inn, and then can dream of what the microtransactions look like on them, which is, again, that thing of like, try before you buy, actually see what it is. And then finally, they end by showing us some paired sets, which are framed in a way to suggest that the in-game look can be just as cool. So let's take a look at this then. We have our in-game look over here, which, alright, pretty sweet. We have our paid look, maybe a bit cooler, but I mean, yeah. This specific example doesn't feel egregious. Now, this is one example. Who knows, right? It obviously, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. You can very easily cherry pick things, because they could choose the things that they think are the best free cosmetics and then choose the paid cosmetics that they think are the most niche. To take a look at this, in-game versus shop, honestly, I think these both look sick. So I really like them both. But again, these are cherry-picked examples that are there to prove their point. The example here is legendary armor through gameplay on the left, and then armor cosmetics over on the right. So look, really, so far, so live service. It is what it is. And that's not the dirtiest thing. Because from my perspective, is what I've always said with mounts in World of Warcraft. People will accept more of that microtransaction stuff if they feel like their core desires in the game are being met. And that's why whenever people started to talk about, World of Warcraft, Boar Lords of Paymore, that was because in Warlords of Draenor, the in-game mounts were often just like reskinned boars that had this really bad animation where they shuffled along, but in order for the animation to actually look fast enough, they basically looked like they were a bunch of like coked up boars. While at the same time, we had a bunch of really nice in-game store cosmetics with the store mounts. And that's why you call it Boar Lords of Paymore, because it's like, the mounts in-game are kind of naff. Look at those ones in the store, and then you could even look at situations in the game where you're like, What? Why is this base where a store mount is grown? Because that would be to people a little bit like, finding Netherwing in the Burning Crusade, but you can't get the Netherwing Drake in-game because instead it's on the store. That's the thing that feels terrible. Whereas right now, I will roll my eyes and groan at how they're doing some of the monetization in World of Warcraft. However, I will at least feel that the content deliverance end of that bargain is significantly more healthy. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Final Fantasy XIV community was generally more okay. Now, they did have some dramas, of course, but they were generally more accepting of their in-game store because they felt like they were being given a completely incredible experience in-game and a content cadence that was very reliable, that engendered good faith. So that's what's going on here. There is the other side here of D4's development certainly having some issues. I mean, we've got this, some of the worry from staff. Quote, "I think my future at Blizzard, my days are numbered," one current member of the D4 team said to Kotaku. They said some others in their team have already given notice. None of their managers agree with the return to office policy. And I know, with this return to office thing, because, I'm recording in an office right now. I mean, I don't have a problem going into the office. And I know a lot of the comments down below will be people being like, fucking Californians can't go into the office. And, there's a bit of me that can get that. My dad he did a construction company. He spent every day, and he's still at 68, works on site, installing windows and shit. And I did all the hard labor when I was a kid. It was important. So, I do have that, little bit of, just have it easy. I do have that ingrained in me. I will admit that. But there is another side to it. It's about competitiveness in the job market, because we're actually in a fairly tight labor market from what I understand. And that means if Big Daddy Riot is, or Bungie, right? If Bungie's going to say, we will give you slightly more money for the same job and you have more flexibility, then someone at Blizzard's going to say, okay, I guess the return to office policy is a pretty damn excuse for me to take this deal at a competing company. Bye! So, we can take this away from this, I think where some of the discussion goes by default, of just being go into the office, man up. We could take it away from that and go into the other side of well, what would you do in that situation? The offer's better over there. Blizzard are making themselves less competitive as an employer. Therefore, that can hurt their content teams, right? So it's one of those things where I think it is a total red herring to just say, oh, man up and go to the office. I think that's a complete red herring in this. If you want to, take that very free market approach to things, you would then say, well, okay, in the jobs market, who is willing to offer more salary, better benefits, and more working flexibility, right? So, I can come at this from the, I can play the lefty angle. I can play the big free market angle. I can do whichever one you want. In any one of those dimensions, Blizzard loses here, right? And that's kind of my point. Because sometimes a lot of these can feel very politicized and very, fiery whenever we talk about the return to work policies. But at the end of the day, no matter what way you look at it, other people are willing to give a better deal. And that means Blizzard will take the L. That's just how it is, right? Basically, development being a bit of a shit show. And this is not a Diablo 4 team thing, this is a World of Warcraft thing, but there was somebody who was a producer at Blizzard who was just tweeting yeah, we kind of have to make crisis maps of what content we can cut. Because people keep on leaving. We've got producers at Blizzard working in World of Warcraft who are just fantastic, there's our plan. Oh dear, a bunch of people have left, now to change the plan. And if you look at patch 10.1, I think 10.1 is actually, at its core, and especially if it had have all came out right, it's a fantastic patch. It is a patch that in terms of what it does to the gearing system of the game, which if you don't play WoW, just look, TLDR, major. One of the biggest wins I think we've had to a foundational pillar of World of Warcraft in a long time. Yeah, it came out with fuckload of bugs. Some content were I thought that was supposed to be there at launch. Where is it? Even Blizzard themselves were confused about what point the new dragon riding mount was supposed to come out. Was it week 1? Was it week 2? conflicting sources from the company, or, reports from the company. And I think, to me, that just speaks to an environment of chaos, of turnover, and that stuff is really not good. So I suppose the bit that I get worried about here, as a WoW player, Dragonflight has been built up with a very flexible work policy with no mandated return to the office. And all that I can say as somebody who covers that game, partially for a living and has played that game since I was a kid, I look at this and I think like, right, so Dragonflight's probably the best expansion they've done since Legion. From a systems design perspective, it's a better expansion than Legion, and from a content cadence perspective, it's basically the most competitive this game has ever been. They managed to ship all of this while working from home, and of course with the way that production cycles and games work, the patch that came out now, people will have been working on that in 2022, right? So now I'm beginning to worry, well, if the team starts to have lots of attrition, what's that going to mean for the content that's being, greenlit now, that's in pre-production? Does that mean our patches will get smaller and more spaced apart? Does that mean the next expansion may not have as much stuff as we would like? And you are forced to think, yeah, probably. So if you're a Diablo 4 player, I really do think that this is a notable worry. I would also say, especially because of cultural issues, we look at two examples of, well, one of them is, I suppose, organic growth. The other one is inorganic growth. So the organic growth to the Diablo team, I suppose, no, it would be kind of inorganic. Anyway, it's the relabeling of Vicarious Visions to be Blizzard Albany, which to Vicarious Visions is like, hey, your culture, your name, everything, your old studio head, Jen O'Neill, instantly left as soon as she became co-leader of Blizzard because it was a shit show. So turnover, bad vibes, bad morale. You look at Proletariat, the company they acquired to boost up the World of Warcraft development pipeline. Bad morale, bad shit going on. We have reports of game directors, which I'm going to assume means, like, Ian Hazzikostas. We can, as an example, as a WoW player, you'll see Ian doing interviews. I forget the name of the game director of Diablo, but it'd be the same thing for you guys over in Diablo land. You see Ian sitting there having to do those PR interviews while we have leaks saying that he is trying to complain up the chain that the remote office, the return to office thing is damaging his team and his ability to, and his production team's ability to actually ship the game. And it's like, cool. So there he is having to do all of these interviews about the new content in the game. Secretly, behind the scenes, what's he doing? What are the things that are stressing him about his job? Is it some sort of, oh my God, management is poisoning us? Oh, it's kind of what you're almost forced to assume. So that's the situation, everybody. Will this impact the consumer-facing side of Diablo 4? Because here's the thing. The store content won't go away. The thing that will contract is the content that you get to play for free in every season. The more that this team gets damaged, the more that, the thing that Blizzard, I suppose, earns our goodwill with, so that we will allow the store, and so that we'll, it will feel like, okay, we're getting lots of free updates and support, therefore we accept your store. Well, their ability to actually deliver on that content may decrease. So we'll have to see how it goes. Overall, here's my perspective. Does it seem like there's pay to win? No. If they're running the game like this, is this a reasonable way to do it? I would say yes. In the action RPG genre, paid cosmetics is a thing, right? Look at Warframe, look at Path of Exile, all of that. If you end up getting an experience that feels comparatively premium from D4, then, that would be pretty good. I can certainly say from my time playing the closed beta, it was 10 out of 10 banger for me. Now, for me, that was mostly because it was very cinematic. It was very, just very, very well put together and high quality. I know that may not be what the core ARPG audience cares about as much, as they're maybe more thinking about those top-end loot systems and buildcraft and things like that. Anyway, that is the situation. A big thank you to you for watching this video. Let me know what you think about the prospects of this company. What do you think about, this idea of, of their turnover? It's like right as the times seem good, they also seem poised to shoot themselves in the foot, which is kind of depressing. Anyway, have a good one. Support the sponsor to support us, and we'll see you next time.